Story 1, Mildewed Towels. I have one other thing, rotten potatoes. For backstory, I used to work in a deli at a grocery store. Many people don't know that when potatoes arrive, you often get a large batch that contains both regular and rotten potatoes. I would have to stay late to clean them because they liquefy and the smell is overwhelming. I have even encountered some with maggots. This experience ruined potatoes for me for a while. What's worse is if they arrive on the same truck as canned dog food shipments, as those flies also lay eggs on dented dog food cans. Story 2. A deceased person after 2 weeks emits a strong odor reminiscent of rotten eggs. It is something you will never forget. It was my old neighbor who passed away, and nobody came around to see him. Story 3. The smell when you walk into a Spirit Halloween store, filled with new rubber masks just taken out of their boxes. Story 4. Teeth have a distinct smell similar to the dust released when you visit the dentist for a dental drill. Story 5. Patchouli smells unpleasant to me. I told my wife that if she ever wants to divorce me, she should just wear patchouli, and I'll understand the message. Story 6. Cumin. I can tolerate small amounts in Indian dishes, provided it is mixed with other spices, but it smells and tastes like stale body odor to me. Story 7. Canned cat food. I lost my sense of smell after having a mild case of COVID-19 4 years ago. My sense of smell has just recently started to return. One of the things I can smell clearly is cat food. Story 8. Diarrhea or vomit, especially if it belongs to someone else. Boiled eggs. Animal feces. Slurry. Someone else's flatulence. A stranger's unpleasant body odor. Spoiled raw chicken fillets. Story 9. I'm pregnant, so my mom's perfume, my boyfriend's perfume, any floral scent, the smells of my house and my boyfriend's house, and floral fabric softener are all overwhelming. Story 10. I dislike the smell of cooking eggs unless they are in a cake. If you are making scrambled eggs, I will need to leave. It's a good time for me, as you can make a cake without eggs. Story 11. Besides the obvious ones, of course. My dog had a bladder infection once, and that smelled unpleasant. It's similar to when a dish rag develops an awful odor. I also dislike lavender. Story 12. Vetiver. New Crocs or Croc store. Balsamic vinegar. Apple cider vinegar. Vomit. Some smells I love are gasoline, freshly paved roads, trees, and my favorite smell is sandalwood and my golden retriever. Story 13. There is a specific type of mold that grows when wet items are left to decompose. It differs from the musty smell of mildew from a damp towel, which is unpleasant but not as repulsive as this. This mold emits a sickly sweet odor reminiscent of decay. Story 14. My wife used to light those sugar cookie candles whenever her dog had an accident in the house. So anytime I smell that scent, it reminds me of the incident. Story 15. There is a strong perfume that people sometimes wear, and the best way I can describe it is that it smells like someone belching flowers. Story 16. My mother makes a dish I like to call white lady slop. It consists of macaroni noodles, boiled potatoes, onions, relish, and mayonnaise. It's quite unappetizing. Story 17. Body odor can be unpleasant, especially when you are in close proximity to a stranger in public places, such as while waiting in line at a store. Story 18. There is a smell that this customer, who is a regular at my store, has. It is a pungent odor, resembling sweat mixed with ground black pepper and a hint of wet dog. It is quite overwhelming. He is a young, thin man, not homeless, as he drives a car and purchases non-essential items in my store, indicating that he is not lacking the means to maintain personal hygiene. He is also riddled with acne. While I understand that acne can be unrelated to personal hygiene, I believe in his case, it stems from insufficient cleansing of his face and poor hand-to-face hygiene. His stench wafts around and fills the room, causing other customers to cover their noses, and it brings tears to my eyes. Today, I detected that same smell and thought that another random customer had a similar body odor. I then looked over and realized he was 3 registers down with my coworker. I smelled him before I saw him. Story 19. The worst smell I ever encountered while cooking was deer meat chops. I had to leave the house while my spouse ate them, and I never made them again. Story 20. I have a terrible sense of smell. I can hardly detect any odors at all. So when something actually bothers me, you can guarantee it's strong to others. As for me, fish is my least favorite smell of all time, along with apple-scented products for some reason. Story 21. The smell of a dog, like after you pet them or if they just came in from running around outside, makes me gag. Story 22. I don't think this is exactly repulsion, but the smell of scented laundry products and air fresheners gives me an instant headache. Even when it's the scent of laundry products coming from my neighbor's dryer vent outdoors. There are some people's houses I can't even enter. Story 23. Sickly sweet gourmand fragrance. I work at a fragrance retailer, and every spray, perfume, lotion, candle, or soap that smells like any type of baked good makes me physically gag and turns me off food for hours. Interestingly, the real counterparts to those goods do not provoke the same reaction. It's something used to enhance the fragrance that makes it genuinely awful. Story 24. Truffle oil and truffle paste were used on a pizza at my former job, and I would feel nauseated just from walking by while they were preparing it. Story 25. Burning sage. Apparently, I am a demon. Seriously, though, that smell makes me feel like I am going to retch uncontrollably. Story 26. My younger sister absolutely refuses to wear socks with her shoes, and we can't get her to consistently put them on. She'll take her shoes off, and it smells awful. Story 27. Other than the obvious ones, such as any kind of body odor or waste, off meat, and more, here are some additional unpleasant smells. Dog. Wet dog. Dropped, decomposing purple flowers from the jacaranda tree during November and December in Sydney. Soft drink flavors like grape, passion fruit, and mango. Crushed ants. Stink bugs. Garbage bins in summer. Story 28. Raw meat has a strong odor that I find difficult to describe. I cannot compare it to anything else. I dislike it so much that whenever I have to handle it, I wear a mask or hold my breath. Story 29. Cooking liver, cabbage, and alcohol makes me want to vomit just from the smell. People using hand sanitizer that smells like vodka are truly my little nightmare, especially on public transport. Story 30. In subway stations with restrooms, which are very few, they use a specific cleaning product that has a potent, sickly sweet odor. Can be smelled from far away from the bathroom and is very overpowering. Story 31. Cucumber melon scented products have a distinct smell that reminds me of infection. I used to work at Bath and Body Works, where many women would ask my opinion on the lotion. I felt compelled to tell them that it smells like an abscess and suggested they choose something else. Story 32. I'm not sure what it is, but it is a toxic gas smell that certain people give off. I can smell it in crowds, in schools, on the subway, in malls, etc. I am not sure if it is body odor, hair product, clothing, or something else. It repulses me, and I start choking, and my eyes begin to burn. Story 33. Raw onion, the stale odor of urine in a nursing home from numerous incontinent patients, and coffee breath or simply bad breath in general. Story 34. It's starting to be that whenever I smell perfume or cologne, whether it's on a person or in the air, I feel grossed out. Even if the scent is pleasant and I enjoy it in other contexts, I can't stand it when it comes to fragrances. I think it might have something to do with the way they are made. But I'm just an average person here. Story 35. Dog waste is probably the worst. The grease traps being emptied at the store where I used to work were also particularly unpleasant. Story 36. I can't stand coffee. I keep it to myself since it's a common beverage and there's nothing to be done about it. Story 37. Vinegar has a strong odor. I have unpleasant memories from my childhood of my mom cleaning the house with it. Story 38. I am currently on medication that amplifies my sense of smell, so a lot repulses me lately. However, the one that takes the cake is a perfume sample from an independent house that unexpectedly has animalic notes. It smells like musty baby powder and rat urine on me. It wouldn't scrub off and somehow got a bit under my fingernail, where it stayed for a good 48 hours, giving me random whiffs and making me gag. It was awful. Story 39. A lot of scented items are overwhelming. Everything smells overly perfumed, and it's too much. I don't want to suffocate in an overpowering scent. We've become a society that masks odors instead of eliminating them or managing them more effectively. I use a mixture of vinegar, dish soap, and water as my regular cleaning solution because it doesn't feel suffocating. It works really well, too. Story 40. When someone around me sneezes and doesn't cover their nose or mouth, I can smell a putrid, musky, wet odor. People tell me I'm making it up or overreacting, but I genuinely find it worse than flatulence. Story 41. There are certain people who have a strong odor of stale alcohol the day after a binge. It makes me feel nauseated. No amount of showering or teeth brushing will help. It seeps from their pores. The only thing that can truly help is time. Story 42. There is a women's perfume that smells like fish and expired bread that was baked in the sun. It is one of the most awful smelling perfumes. Unless this is some feminine hygiene issue, I have smelled it one too many times. I feel like it is a terrible perfume. Story 43. Scented laundry detergent always smells unpleasant to me on people's clothes and linens. It becomes particularly bothersome when they use a laundromat and set the dryer to the high setting, resulting in a burning odor. It's quite off-putting. Story 44. Subway, the sandwich shop, not the mode of transportation, has a smell that I find repulsive. I almost got sick once while walking into a gas station that also had a Subway. The odor overwhelmed me, and I just couldn't handle it. Story 45. When I was hospitalized this year and needed to use the commode, they placed an absorbent pad inside. The scent of it was the worst I have ever experienced in my life. Story 46. The smell of cooking winter squash makes me gag. My ex would cook it for himself when I was away, and I could still smell it days later when I got home. Story 47. Rice that has been forgotten in the rice cooker. I am not a squeamish person. Blood, pus, and vomit do not bother me, only the ruin of rice. Story 48. I am a transporter, and at one of my stops, I have to pass a hospital's dishwashing room. The smell lingers with me all day. Story 49. Wet peanut butter alters the smell when washing a bowl or knife that has peanut butter on it, becoming almost like kryptonite. Story 50. Chitlins boiling. I never smelled them until I visited a client's house as a visiting nurse. Her husband was boiling some. It was very strange. Story 51. Cloves. I feel like I was pranked at school because there was a vile smell in my bag that made me feel really sick. I had no idea what it was. Fast forward to years later, and I finally smelled the aroma of cloves on the spice rack, and I was ready to be sick again. Story 52. My cat has the worst breath. He can be 5 feet away from me and facing away, and I can still smell it. Story 53. Overripe avocado. Rotten potatoes. Also patchouli. Also grass for some reason, as in actual grass, not marijuana. Story 54. My mom always used pine sol to clean up after our puppy. Now it just smells unpleasant to me. Story 55. I have a cyst on my back. It doesn't have much in it because I am constantly draining it. The contents smell unpleasant. I can't stop smelling it and then I feel repulsed. I don't know what's wrong with me. Story 56. Oregano, particularly dried, is unpleasant. I dislike sitting next to someone eating menudo when they bring out that large dish of dried oregano. Story 57. Recently, my parents had a freezer malfunction. They lived down south during the winter. My dad flew home, arrived at the house, and discovered that the freezer was warm and the meat had spoiled. There was a puddle of rotten meat juice leaking from the freezer. The stench was the most awful smell I have ever encountered. Story 58. It may be a strange feeling, but wet peanut butter makes me gag. Every time I have to clean a utensil with peanut butter stuck on it, the smell is unpleasant. I don't understand why it smells so bad when it's wet. It doesn't bother me when it comes straight from the jar. Story 59. I grew up near a factory that produced artificial scents. A few times a month, whatever they were manufacturing permeated the neighborhood. There was one scent that was somewhat like butterscotch and reminiscent of what I imagine a meth lab smells like. It used to make me absolutely nauseous. I don't live there anymore, but I visit sometimes, and the factory is still there, producing the same smells. It makes my son sick now too. Story 60. Men's cologne typically has an undertone that I find unpleasant. My aversion dates back to high school, where there was a classmate who sought attention in bizarre ways. One day, he decided to take a swig of cologne, for reasons known only to him. He sat behind me in science class, and for the entire period, I had to endure the combination of cologne and unpleasant breath. It took all my effort to avoid feeling sick, and since that day, any faint smell of cologne makes me feel nauseous. Story 61. Funnel cake. I have 3 witnesses on many occasions who have accompanied me to state fairs and outdoor Halloween events. They have seen me gag when the smell of funnel cake wafted our way. I honestly don't know why. I know what is in them and they sound like a good sugary treat, but no thank you. Story 62. For those who have worked on cars, burnt gear oil has a lingering stench that stays in your nostrils, and you can almost taste it. I would rather smell rotting meat drenched in spoiled milk at low tide. Story 63. Cold leftovers. When you take your taco meat, bolognese, or other dishes out of the fridge and open them up before microwaving. Story 64. When I did environmental work, I had to blend dead mice and dead fish from environmental contamination. They had been dead for over 2 weeks by the time I had to stick them in a blender and mince them into a puree. I had to test them for cyanide, polychlorinated biphenyls, heavy metals, and other contaminants. The worst part was seeing a little foot or hand floating after mixing everything up. I think I'm going to be sick again. I've never felt this nauseated so often in my life. Story 65. Burger King. Let me explain. About 20 years ago, I had a job that I walked to, and a significant shortcut took me behind a Burger King. In August, the smell from the hot dumpster back there was overwhelming, and even now, every Burger King reminds me of that experience. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.